Evidence before the Royal Commission on Indian Currency and Finance. Part 5. What is to prevent it going into premium? It cannot at once go to a premium because it has a substitute in gold. Rupees are not to be convertible in gold. The rupee cannot go to a discount because it is limited in volume. No more rupees are to be coined. The rupee cannot go to a premium because there is the alternative of gold coin functioning as currency. Then you say, but there is just this chance that the existing volume of the rupee currency is so large that when there is a trade depression, it may become redundant and may, by reason of its excess, lose its value. As a safeguard against such contingency, I propose that the government should use part of the gold standard reserve for reducing the rupee currency by a substantial margin so that even in times of severe depression, it may remain limited to the needs of the occasion. How would that operation take place? You simply call in rupees and not issue them again by the process of calling in rupees up to a certain limit. So that the rupees would not to that extent be convertible into gold. It will never be convertible into gold until the limit is reached, so that it will never be in excess even in times of depression. The rupee will not be convertible into gold and gold will not be convertible into rupees. Even as it is, I am not very much afraid that the rupee will go to a discount, but there is just this chance that it might, and I therefore propose that safeguard. Coming then to the question of the ratio, you say, in European countries the problem is one of deflating the currency, that is, appreciating it, in other words, of bringing about a fall in prices. In India, the problem becomes one of inflating the currency, that is, depreciating it, in other words, of bringing about a rise in prices. For a change from 1 shilling 6 dime gold to 1 shilling 4 dime gold means this and nothing else. Should the currency be inflated to reach back to pre-war parity? Then you point out that the restoration of the pre-war parity is not a restoration to the pre-war price level because there is a change in gold prices. Yes. Further, you point out that two things must be borne in mind in this connection. Existing contracts includes those made at every stage of preceding depreciations and appreciations, and deal fairly with all would demand that each one should be treated separately, a task if possible by reason of its complexity and enormity. I understand that the opinion which you emphasize there is that we have been passing through a period of violent fluctuations in the value of the rupee, that at every stage contracts have been entered into, and that it is impossible, as it were, to fix upon any definite ratio which will do justice as between all those contracts made at the varying levels. Yes. Then you say that the great bulk of contracts have been of recent date. Well, my information is really based upon a small note made by Professor Cannon in one of his articles in the Statistical Journal. Are there any statistics available which would give us a correct estimate of the number of contracts? I think it is a guess for what it is worth, a question of common sense. Then you say, it may be said that the center of gravity of the total contractual obligations is always near the present. Those premises lead you to the following conclusion that given these two facts, the best solution would be to strike an average between 1 shilling 4 times and 1 shilling 6 times, and say that it is nearer 1 shilling 6 times than 1 shilling 4 times. I am not quite sure that I quite follow that. Your trend of reasoning would rather have led me to suppose that you would finally turn out to be a supporter of the 1 shilling 6 times. I say it may be nearer 1 shilling 6 times and away from 1 shilling 4 times. What ratio would you suggest? It is difficult, of course. I think 1 shilling 6 times would be just as good. It could not inflict any very great hardship. Then finally, as regards the question of the rising and falling rupee ratio, European is summarized in paragraph 9. You say, now, if it is realized that a low exchange means higher internal price, it will at once become clear that this gain is not a gain from one class at the cost of another class in the country. Which class gains and which class loses? The business class gains, the laboring class does not. The price of all factors of production does not change. Wages do not change as rapidly as price, and there are the classes who suffer. Have you any suggestion to make, either from theoretical or practical point of view, as regards the important provisions as to the currency arrangements to provide elasticity to meet seasonal currency arrangements and seasonal demands? As I hinted, of course, very briefly, if we want to make our currency elastic for several purposes and seasonal purposes, we must somehow see that the commercial paper which has given rise for trade transactions is converted to currency, so that the commercial paper should be made more a basis for the issue of the currency than the government bonds. I think it would be good to the good of India if we adopt the proposals of the German Imperial Bank. They adopted, of course, more or less the English Banking Act of 1894 with variations so as to suit the seasonal demands. That is the provision for the time being of paper issues under certain regulations. That is the provision is not for the extension of the fiduciary issue. Exactly. In return for the payment of a proportional tax? Yes, I think it is sufficient safeguard for both. Professor Koyaji, the chief merit of the gold standard is, according to you, that it places certain definite limitations against possible fluctuations? Exactly. But of course, there are certain things, for example, the provision from the mines is not based on how much currency is required by a country. Yes, I may say that I am in favor of a gold standard simply because compensating systems are not workable. If they are workable, I would at once reject the gold standard. I am not in love with it at all. Nor does the gold standard ameliorate the consequences of a trade cycle. No. Then there is only one point. In paragraph 5, you observe, I am necessarily in favor of the abolition of the gold standard reserve as being of no practical use for maintaining the stability of the currency. By analogy, why not abolish the paper currency reserve also? Because the value of the paper depends upon its limitations. Quite. Would you establish that? Would you abolish that? No, for this reason. Because we are not placing a fixed limit on the issue of paper. Under the scheme where I say we should abolish gold standard, I am placing a definite limit on the issue of the rupee. In case of paper currency, we have allowed the government that discretion. Do you think that is possible? I will tell you why. Because with limited incomes and things like that, there is more scope as population shall be coining gold and no rupees as population increases for the use of the rupee. Could you say forever and forever we shall be coining gold and no rupees until possibility the quantity of gold in circulation will be 10 times that of the rupee? Would that be convenient to the country? I should think it would be. I would rather say that instead of using gold, we should use notes backed by gold. I do not mean that we should go use gold from hand to hand. The end.